Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 5, Episode 8.
Welcome back, friends. Today we are hanging out in Los Angeles with someone who is a bit more behind the scenes in Hollywood. Our guest today has his own podcast called New Hollywood. He's a talent manager, does work in consulting, strategy, optimization, etc., etc. Welcome to the show, Ashwin Jacobs.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, thanks for coming and kicking it. This isn't my house, but somebody lent us this house to do this, so I'm thankful for them.
So am I. This was a fun little drive out here, and you guys got a nice little setup.
How far away, because we're in Glendale, actually. How far away are you right now? Like, where'd you come from?
I came from the Hollywood Hills, but I live in Hollywood.
In a sweet car.
And a beautiful Mercedes that I work with for Drive LA, renting out exotic cars.
Yeah, what in the world? Okay, so who are you and what are you passionate about?
So my name is Ashwin Jacob, and I am a life enthusiast first and foremost beyond any job title. I live my life optimizing it for happiness and, bringing positivity to other people's lives. I strive to be the person that I didn't have in my life, which is someone that can help you get to where you want to get to be in life. So recently, when I've been doing interviews with the press, they started calling me the real life Hollywood Genie. And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty accurate because I can do almost just about anything. I can grant a lot of wishes for people. I can't make anybody fall in love with you. I'm not going to kill anyone, and I can't bring people back from the dead. And I'm like, the only difference is it's not 3 wishes. It's just how much can you pay to make these wishes happen?
Well, I mean, if you have the right relationships, you know how to make things happen, right? It's like producing on a whole different level. So how can people best follow you and get in contact?
So I have a website called ashwinjacob.com/connect with me. You can find me on everything. But the main platform that I'm very engaged on is Instagram. I'm just Ashwin Jacob, ASHWINJACOB.
Perfect. And then you can follow the Passion Pod at Passion Pod, but you probably already do. So you have the fact that you came out here, you're young, and you did all this stuff, it kind of blows my mind. So you'll get into some of this. You grew up on a totally different side of the country, right? And from the little bit that I read, you didn't your parents didn't speak English, and so where did you grow up? How did you kind of come up a little bit? Tell me the childhood part.
Yeah. So I have a very unique name, Ashwin, which is an Indian name, but officially in every book when I looked it up, it said it was an English name. My parents are both Indian. They're from the same village in India. My dad lived in Nigeria. They got married. They had me. So they were working jobs in America, but they didn't really speak English well. So TV taught me how to speak English. And I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. And the neighborhood that I lived in was primarily Black and Latino and Brazilian. So I was very ethnically confused. And Boston itself is a great place. A lot of good schools, a lot of great education. But there's one rule in Boston, which goes unsaid. You can be anything you want. You can be gay. You can choose to be, them or they. There's a lot of freedom in Boston. But the one rule in Boston is be white or be a professional athlete. So I didn't really fit in, It was always a thing that I had. I wasn't going to get picked for certain things. And for me, entertainment was my escape. I'd look at this TV screen or I'd listen to this song and I'd be like, if I came out to LA, this person would be my friend. Or if I was in New York and I worked in the scene, I could, really help. I could bring value to these people. And it was enough so that when I was 18 years old and I was writing my college essays, I wrote them about Diddy, who I later subsequently worked with on a team, running his clothing. And the person I talked to a lot was his best friend, who they have a Netflix documentary coming out about Biggie on TV. And it's it's a pretty wild experience to have gone from writing college papers to Diddy. And Diddy, I never told him that because there's never really an opportunity, but I told his best friend that, and he was like, that is such a trip.
So how did you learn? Okay, so you optimize people's lives, right? So you're a life coach to a certain degree.
Yes.
Right? What are the things that why do people hire you, I guess? What is it that you offer?
So I think a lot of people are confused by what it is that I do. And I think that's usually where the funnel in marketing terms starts off. Is what does this guy do? He's around in these crazy cars. He's in these mega mansions. There are pretty girls around him. Looks like an average looking Indian guy. Is he a doctor? Is he a plastic surgeon? That's where most people's minds go. But the thing that when people meet me is my real life personality and who I am is very different. Like I don't actually care about being in these houses. I don't really care about like what is beautiful about a person on the outside or what they can do for me. I care about like the value of a human on the inside and what I can do for them or what I can create with that person. And why I think people get attracted to me is I tell them very blatantly that at the best points in my life, when I was making the most money and I was doing all these amazing things, I was deeply unhappy. And people that can afford a high level coach usually are deeply unhappy because they've sacrificed so much of what makes them happy to do that. And I'll take them through like a holotropic breathwork session where they just breathe in and breathe out and they'll deal with their worst enemy, which more often than not is yourself. It's when you look in that mirror, when you wake up, the negative things that you say in your mind to yourself. I help people get out of that pattern and say more positive things to themselves. I set them up for wins by putting them in new circles, or I'll call them out on, hey, you're around these 3 or 4 people that tear you down every time. And every time you let those people tear you down, you kill yourself. I was told that I should not be the person that's on screen. So I went into management in the beginning of the career. And what I'm doing now is I'm putting myself on screen because there's so many people that look like me that have dealt with so much rejection for nothing other than the fact that their race or what society tells you that you can do or how you're supposed to be. And I think changing that stereotype is a very interesting thing, and also telling people that like, hey, maybe give people a shot. I judge everyone based off the fact of how they've treated me and my experiences with them, regardless if I know people that have been in bad experiences with a human.
Do you think that's why you've been able to network the way that you do? Like why it's worked out so well is because you just view everybody, which you should, but it's hard for people to do. Everybody just the same and equal, that everybody has like something that you can gain from them that you can also give them value. Has that helped through the whole network?
Kind of. I think it's like I view people that they have infinite potential. Like the person that's working in Starbucks today that gets me my coffee might be the person that gets me my next big deal. And that is very much so the truth in Los Angeles, because there are a lot of people that go to the same Starbucks that I go to, right? That kid has the opportunity to deal with people I need to get in touch with. And randomly, as much as people might not think that being a credible introduction, the guy that you see every day, that you have that bullshit conversation with for 2 to 3 minutes about the weather or life, about how your day is, making an introduction means enough that more often than not, you'll be able to get yourself in the room.
Yeah.
No. I'm willing to explore opportunities with anyone. I'm willing to give anyone a shot. But after people don't deliver on a shot, or after they've done bad things with a lot of the introductions, then I don't really want to do things with them going forward, because I'm very particular about the people I put together. And I always encourage people to just view it as, hey, this could be something great, this could be something bad, but try the one thing out before you get into bed with every other business dealing.
Well, yeah, for sure. And you have to figure out like what is it that you're good at, right? You kind of have to test out a couple things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Once you find a lane, then you can, head down that lane to a certain degree. Was it motivation, like coming up, was it because you felt like you couldn't? Was that like a good part of why you did what you did? Like
I think the big part is like a lot of people deny that they have anxiety or that they've overcome their anxiety, their depression. For me, anxiety is my motivator. It is the fact that I was told I was not good enough, that I was ugly, that I was useless, that I would never have a shot in entertainment, that I could never be the person on screen, I could never be around these people, or why would this person talk to you? And the wild part about this is, you know what? I'm not athletically very gifted. I can catch a football okay most of the time, but I'm never going to play in the league. But I've played catch with some of the best football players in the world. I've shot basketballs with some of the best basketball players in the world. And I think that is one of the amazing things in life is people that are amazing at something do not care if you were that amazing at it. Yes, they're not going to hire me to be a professional football player, but if we're in the backyard, you're just throwing a ball around, they want to show you how they got great at it. Because anyone that's great at something wants to share why they're great at it. They want to share that enthusiasm for it. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things in life is learning why someone loves something. Because, I told you at the beginning of this interview, I wasn't the biggest car guy. But after being around guys that really love cars and experiencing why these things work the way that they do, I'm starting to love being in nice cars. I'm starting to love the fact that there is performance engineering or how these things function. And I think that's the beautiful part about life is you can learn to appreciate a lot of different things if you just open yourself up to looking foolish for a little period of time. Was
there like a time frame? Because did you get caught up in the trying to make money? You know what I mean? After you came up, did you just get caught up in the idea of like, how do I make all this money? And then was there some kind of like trigger where all of a sudden you realize money is just like a tool like anything else, and I don't necessarily need that much of it depending on what I'm trying to do?
100%. So I came out here. My story is I moved to Los Angeles with $500, a leaking air mattress. I drank 2 cases of Red Bull between me and one of my buddies. We stopped for a couple hours in Nebraska, and then we're like, hey, there's casinos. There's like some like fun bars. Why don't we just go out and have some fun for a little bit? So we slept like 4 or 5 hours, ended up in a mountain in Denver where we took a little break to visit a recreational shop of some sorts. And we had a little adventure where we got lost for a bit in a mountain, and then we continued straight into Los Angeles. And every job opportunity that I had in entertainment agency, I was rejected from. And I failed, and I failed, and I failed. And then the day that I got a job offer from this company, Collective Digital Studios, my other friend that was at Disney and doing some really cool stuff was like, hey, you should start a management company with my friend. There's a lot of contracts that they could steer your way, and he doesn't have money to pay you because this is new for him and he has his other business. But we'll make sure you get paid first out of anyone on these deals that we'll do, and we'll sign these big talents. And then I was like, dude, we should sign traditional talent and digital talent. And he was like, I love that idea. I talked to the other guy, and then I slept on it for one night, and I said, I'm going to go out and start this business. And instead of going into a system where I could have been primed for success, I chose the harder route to go out and do it on my own way. And for me, it's always been this interesting journey of like not making money. And through that process, I made okay money. Then I made better money. Then at one point, I remembered like whatever bad thing that happened, like I could go and think I'm like in love with a girl, meet up with her, and her tell me that she has 0 feelings for me. And after getting rejected, I'd go home and I'd be like, I made $18,500 this month. I'm great. I've never made $18,000, $500. And then I went to breakfast with a publicist that I was friends with. And she's like, you know, you're popping up everywhere. The big celebrity parties that you're throwing are huge. Everyone like seems to love you. You must be pulling in crazy money. And I'm like, you know what? I pulled in $18,500. And she said, honey, breakfast is on me. You got to make more money for what you're doing. I went home and I'm like, $18,500 is not that much money in a month? Mind you, I worked for years for like $40,000 before coming to Los Angeles, doing bullshit jobs in like regular 9-to-5s. And I'm like, that's half my annual salary almost, is $18,500. The next month I made $22,000. The month after that, I made $30,000. Then I got to a point that I was pulling in over 50 on some of these months. And the worst part of it was the more money I made, the more unhappy I was. I had people that did things for me. I had people that answered my emails. I didn't look at emails for over a year on my own. I didn't answer my text messages back because I was getting between 50 to 200 text messages a day. And my phone calls were I was on phone calls all day, and then I had someone managing my personal life. And I was deeply unhappy. I ended up with a tech company, and I got screwed out of hundreds of thousands, if not over $1 million in deal flow that I brought in because they operated a little bit unethically. And one of my friends was the one that got me into it. And he's like, he took me to lunch and he said, trust me, I'm going to make sure that things get right. Just do not sue them right now. Just like let this like flow, and I'm going to figure out how to make this work. And recently he left that company too. So there's no making of that right. And the time that I could have done that, but I value my loyalty to people that I care about beyond money, that I did the thing that was right for me and my ethics. And during that period of time, I had a weird like situation with a girl that I ended up being sad, and I watched the entire season of Gossip Girl. Great show for anyone that's looking for a binge. Extremely dramatic, but extremely captivating. And I got fat and I got depressed. And in December of that year, I was just working on these one big contracts. I would throw 1 or 2 parties a year, and I'd make my annual nut. I'd throw my Coachella party, I'd throw some like pool parties, and I'd throw a big Halloween party, and I'd make my annual income. And what I ended up doing that year was like I started going to the gym again. Started lifting slowly, little by little. And I started making calls for work again. And then things started picking up in January, and I signed a big model to a big contract, and we were getting all these deal flows in. By February, I went from working with someone that was mostly a regular girl to someone that we made famous that was about to pull in 6 figures plus in income, to them calling me and saying, hey, your percentage is higher than other managers. And I'm like, listen, like everything you had was deleted, and I was like a co-partner, and I invested money into like building some of these assets. And this is what you owe me. And like, I'm fine to walk away after I built this for you. Pay me what's owed up until this date. And they never paid me. And that happened again. And I was depressed for like another 2 weeks. And then this time I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest in myself. why am I building up all of these other people? I'm going to invest in myself, and I'm going to use my platform to tell people what I learned during my depression phase, is that it's really about your own voice talking to yourself, realizing that we do have infinite potential to impact the lives that we have. So I think it's admirable that a lot of people protested and did a lot of things for civil rights this year. But what I encourage a lot of people to do, and where my qualm comes from, is I think America is an amazing country to grow up in. My parents grew up in India. There's a lot of socialist stuff in there, but there is not that much opportunity for people to become successful. And if I grew up in India, I would be earning less than what I made in a month at that horrible job that I hated at the beginning of my career, working a 9-to-5 type of thing in a year with a college degree. And what we can do if we want to change things without a system making it and to actually make real impact is, if you have a company, hire someone. If you work at a company, find someone, give them an opportunity to get into that company. They don't need to be the senior executive right away, the director, the board of director right away. But if you get someone into a system, they can have that opportunity. I think that is the most beautiful thing that we're all blessed with. That's the thing that I live my life and aspire to do every day, is do something positive. It could be just giving someone a compliment someday. Someday it could be actually helping someone more in a meaningful way, but it's doing little things each day that can brighten somebody's day.
Well, yeah, and the world tends to pay you back with those types of things, even though you're not doing it because of that.
Especially when you don't keep score.
Right, exactly. You'll just be surprised by how many like really nice people you run into, and it's just because you had a good smile on your face, so they wanted to talk to you. So I want to, your trajectory has kind of been all over the place, right? You went from making a bunch of money, and now all of a sudden you're doing different things, and you like have all these different revenue streams. On the trajectory of your career, of what you envisioned yourself doing, where are you? Are you doing exactly what you want to do with your own businesses and stuff? Or are you still like in your mind, you want to be acting in a major feature film within a few years? Like, what are you trying to do? Where are you on that trajectory?
So I actually do want to get into acting more. My role model is definitely Diddy. And that's why like I'm in a lot of different businesses, is I'm trying out a lot of different things, figuring out what works. I'm taking a lot of shots. And for me, I realized like the money isn't my scorecard. My scorecard has always been like the experience. Like, I want to do fun stuff with my friends. I want to create really cool art. Like I had my first feature film come out with a guy called Johnny Hickey that I got a single card producer credit on. And Bill Burr is promoting this movie about this being one of the biggest like moves for the anti-drug movement. It's like a former Boston gangster that made this film with me. And I was up for a couple of film opportunities earlier in the year and those got canceled. But like for me, it's like, okay, that got canceled. I'm going to work on my course. Everyone starts asking me about like my crystals that I heal people with. And I'm like, I'm going to get into building out a brand that I can promote what I'm actually interested in through it. So like I find ways of taking my passions and incorporating them into businesses. And when they work, that's amazing because that allows me to invest more of my time into things I'm passionate about. And when they don't work, I learn, hey, maybe there's not a business. This is just something I enjoy for myself. And like now I'm getting into making my own content for myself and pushing myself out there. And that's really uncomfortable for me because as much as I'm a social guy, I've always been really private. And now it's getting open and talking about those things that aren't necessarily great and trying to change that paradigm shift of people getting on social media to brag about the nice things that they have to talking about the things that really hurt them. Like, hey, I might be seen on social media all the time with a pretty girl and that makes me look cool to a lot of people. And that is probably the intention subconsciously of why I did that in the beginning of my life. But I might have feelings for somebody else that doesn't return those feelings for me. And I think that's the truth of human connection, is that is much more relatable to people on social media. So if more people were vulnerable about their anxieties, their weaknesses, they would connect better instead of picturing this picture perfect lifestyle.
Yeah, I tend to find that with even the posts that I make, the ones that are more about my personal life tend to do significantly better than all the other ones. So yeah, no, I think that's really valuable. And in general, like relationships are what end up bringing up cool experiences for you. And the only way that happens is if you can connect with people on a person to personal, level, which unfortunately with social media, a lot of people tend to use it to like show how cool they are rather than who they actually are. And nobody wants to just listen to somebody that thinks they're cool, right?
100%.
Then they're not a real person. You know what I mean? So you want to be with them anyways. So looking at like social media stuff, I know you're not going to do this forever, but I'm just curious because I've seen people go from 5,000 to whatever, 200,000 in a short period of time. And I'm like, what are people doing? Because every time somebody just says like, well, just post good content. I'm like, yeah, but I've seen accounts with good content that don't do anything either. So looking at mine, like just pulling it up really quickly.
Yep.
What are a couple like things you can see from it that you're like, dude, you got to do this better?
So there's a couple things, right? The account isn't that old from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's like a year and a half.
It's about a year and a half. So like, it's not bad for what you've done. You had one former username. It was passion_pod. So you've already improved it by removing the underscore.
Yep, that's new in case anyone listening didn't realize it. Now it's just @passionpod.
So part of it is a lot of them are the slide throughs. I think sometimes like having too many slide throughs, people don't really see the rest of the slide. The other part is the biggest opportunity for any social media page is you need other people to post to your page on their pages that have audiences. So it's putting accelerant on it. It's not about the content itself, is how much fuel are you putting in it? Because if we go outside and we hop in this car, it has a quarter tank and we drive to Vegas, we're breaking down somewhere. That's not the engine. It's not the car. There's no gas.
Right.
And to get gas on it, you need to get shout outs from larger pages, or you need to enter things to get like the giveaway contest that people are running right now to get people to your page. Now, giveaways aren't going to get you targeted followers. They're going to get you general followers. You're going to grow in bulk. But then you can retarget them with like creating things that are attractive to people that follow that audience that you went after. Then the third thing is doing advertising. Facebook and Instagram have an amazing ad platform that allow you to get your content seen by a lot of different people. And if you have something of value that you can give away, people are very likely to join with you. So like, I know that the podcast is about inspiring people, but one of the things that you have access to because of your shop is you have probably awesome boards. Right. You could run contests giving away boards for emails and like signups and follows. That'll get people more engaging.
Interesting. No, I think those are all really good ideas.
It's leading with value.
Right. So people have different goals, right, with their social media. A lot of times, at least in my opinion, it's just about being seen, right? But people, I think they don't look at, I mean, even for my account, for the area that I'm in, it has like a relatively large amount of following. And I think it's because I look at it as a different like way. I think I look at my social media page as, hey, this is my billboard that goes out to the world. How do I want to curate that billboard for people to be able to see things and want to communicate with me and stuff like that? What, I guess in your words, like how can you tell people how to use social media for their goals? Like, do you understand kind of what I'm asking?
Yeah. So it depends. You have to decide, is this social media page for me or is this for my business? And like for me, it's kind of a combo of both, to be quite honest. Like, yes, a lot of things are for me, but there's a lot of things that I do for my business. I post brands that I'm sponsored by. I create content for other brands and I work on like partnerships and I do photo shoots to make myself look good. Now it's also understanding why you're doing certain things, right? So if you are a model and you're selling your content on a premium platform and you're saying, hey, I'm doing this photo shoot with this photographer because this is going to sell more content, is that the right answer or is that just a vanity thing or is that justification for what you're spending? In most cases, the content that you're shooting with that photographer is going to perform just as well as the content that you've shot yourself on an iPhone. But photographer is very worthwhile for having an experience that you want or having a thing that's going to be published in a magazine because then you're going to have a better quality. So it's knowing the reason why you're doing certain things. So on my social media, a lot of the hard posts are done with the intention of like, hey, this is something to let people that come to my page know what it is that I do, or at least pique their interest to send me a message to ask me about what I do. My story, though, is a combination of things that I need to do for my business and then things that I like to do because I think it's humorous to myself or to get a reaction out of other people. So like I grew up with sisters and I have some feminine tendencies, which is like I like putting face masks on and giving myself a facial. And I will literally put myself on my story with a blue mask and talk about why this thing is great. And other people will hit me up later and they're like, honestly, I was really stressed out and I put on a calming mask and I felt way better as a guy. And I'm like, I'm glad that that helped you because it's fun. It's like a little break. And a lot of times people take themselves so seriously that like they feel emasculated by doing something like that.
So I keep like kind of almost losing my train of like how I want to bring this up really, but this is building relationships. It's all about like who you know type situation, right? And then you have to look at like, how is this mutually beneficial between me and this person? Because that's really the only reason that people want to work together. Yeah. You know, is because they see a mutual benefit, even if the only mutual benefit is that it's going to be fun, you know, but typically like they're looking for like, how can I help this person or whatever. How do you like I think it's difficult to walk the line of confidence but not being cocky with people, and 100%. I think if you can do it really well, you'll see how all of a sudden everyone wants to be around you. I think a lot of it just comes down to like being frank and honest and kind, but like how do you walk that? Do you see people doing that really poorly or really well? What characteristics are there? How can people do that better?
So there's a lot of different things. And the biggest thing is being comfortable fully with yourself. Because regardless of how nice you are or how much value you can bring, or even if you don't bring any value, there are always going to be some people that just don't like you. So own yourself fully for what you are. So if you're somebody that is extremely open and willing to say everything about your life, own that, because more people are going to be attracted to you for that. But if you're extremely like quiet or reserved, you don't have to change fully. You can still be quiet and reserved and talk about what you're comfortable about doing, but don't feel like you need to behave in a certain different way. But the truth is, to ask people a lot of questions about what they're working on. So one of the things I do when I speak at conferences a lot of times is most people want to network with just the person on stage. Somebody finishes talking, tons of people run out to try and catch that person, ask them a question, grab their business card, send them an email or whatever. But more often than not, that person on stage isn't interested in helping the person. They're just interested in talking and hearing their own voice. And that's the truth at a lot of these business conferences. Most people are there to hear their own voice and talk about how awesome they are, how much money they have, and all the cool things that they've built. So what I make people do is I tell everybody at the beginning of the thing, everyone's full of shit, including myself that's up here. We're here to talk and hear our own voice for a decent piece of this. What is going to bring you the most value is what I'm going to do in the first 5 minutes. I hope this brings you value, and let me know if it does, which is I want you to get out of your seat, because most of you have been here with people that you've known for the whole experience or came here with, and talk to one person. And the only thing you're supposed to share is your name. What is something that you're looking to get out of this? What sort of deal you're looking for? And then what is something that you can do that's of value? So if the thing is that you can do of value is, I'm great at social media, let me help you with that. And the thing that you're looking for is someone that's good at supply logistics, so you can get in touch with like manufacturers in China. You can find your contact. More often than not, at the end, at least 5 to 30 people will come up to me and tell me that they met the person that they needed to meet by moving around. And I think that's something that we do in our day-to-day lives is we stay with the same people that we've known our whole life. We'll go to a party. We'll talk to the people that we already know, and we're afraid of rejection so much. So embrace that rejection, embrace that failure, because most people are just shutting down opportunities and things that could be positive for their life. That's their loss, not yours.
Right. No, and it ultimately all that comes from is that anxiety and embarrassment factor of being like afraid of being denied. You know, because everybody hates that. They hate the idea of like going to a party, going and trying to talk to somebody, and that person being like, I don't give a shit what you have to say. But I do think it's really important if you can be comfortable with yourself and say, well, what am I looking to get? More friends. Okay, not 10 out of these 10 people want to be my friend, but if I don't ask all of them, I'm not going to have any new friends. I could go out with 0 friends, or I could have a success rate of 7 out of 10 and walk away with 7 new friends today, because I was just willing to like put myself in that situation. That's something that like obviously you do really well, and I think everybody could benefit if they can figure out how to do that. You know what I mean?
100%. And like for me, it's like there are people that hate me. There are a lot of people that talk about me all the time. They're like, he's superficial, he's vain, he does this sort of thing. But I'm like, at the end of the day, you still kind of want to be at that party. That's the truth. And like part of it is done with the intention of being that sort of thing. So you create inbound, people wanting to treat you better. A lot of things are defense mechanisms. So I've dealt with people that like people view as extremely tough and imposing. And when you talk to them and you get to know them really well, the reason that they became this tough, imposing figure is because they were terrified at one point. And that's why they do everything to make themselves look that way. So I was so scared of rejection that I became very hard to talk to, because I have hundreds of calls, because I shoot even more calls at the beginning of my day than most people do, to get that sort of like, communication, find out what those opportunities are, and to go after these things. And I think that's the real truth of this is you just got to shoot your shot, tell people what you want and what you're looking for and what you need, and be transparent with it. Because if you're just honest with everyone that you meet about what you're looking for, and then you find out what they're also looking for, you're probably going to meet someone that is the void that people are looking for.
Yeah, well, and it tends to work, like, as long as you're, like, honest about it from the beginning, the way that you network with people, and you don't try to put the wrong people together. If you just wait until you see the right connection and you only make those right connections, I feel like they tend to build all the time, because then people trust you when they ask for your opinion because you were able to solve that problem, even if you weren't directly the person. You know what I mean?
It's also let some relationships grow, because if you met someone as a friend and they can help you with your business, it shouldn't be your whole goal to make it about them helping with your business. You shouldn't be offended if they don't help you with your business either. Right. They might just want you in their life as a friend.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it, right? It's like figuring out where everybody fits within your life. You know, it's not, some people are going to be a mentor. Some people are going to be a lover. Some people are going to be that friend you just get drunk with and complain because you want to let off steam, whatever. It's okay as long as you both have the same expectation. So the next part I want to ask about, because you're doing like life coach type stuff, right? So obviously you can look at me and say, I need to go boxing and do a couple more push-ups, but I look okay. But for somebody that's listening who's a struggling artist, right? And that can cover a lot of different things. That could be painting. It could be somebody that makes, crafts out of beads and sell them, like whatever their thing is. They're a struggling artist. They have a regular job and they only have time to do art like in their free time. So on the weekends or whatever. So it's taking a back seat. What are 3 things a person can do today to put them in the direction of actually spending that time doing shit that they want to do?
So one of the biggest things is like for me was fitness. Like I loved fitness, but I took time off because I had these regular jobs or I was always going after things. And I still know this to this day. If I do not get my workout in first thing in the morning, it's not going to happen. I'm not a morning person. I hate the mornings. I'm much more of a night owl. So put things on your schedule. Like hold yourself accountable for doing your art or doing your passion project. And it could be like me. You'll know that you're not going to be able to do it in the middle of the day. You're not going to do it when you come home at the end of the day. You're not going to be able to do the right thing before bed. Then make it be that annoying task that you have to do an hour earlier and wake yourself up and make yourself do it. And consider that like your dose of pain for the day that you need to go through. And the more you do it and the more miserable it is at certain points, you'll be okay. But don't beat yourself up if you miss one day. You can miss one day every once in a while and that's okay and you can deal with it, but don't let that become a habit. So I think the real truth of this is just hold yourself accountable for it, put in those hours, try it out. And then the hardest part for most artists is share your art with people. Be comfortable being vulnerable. Show it to people that you think are 10 times better than you. Show it to your friends, show it to your family, and get it out there because it's not about having this million platform thing or having one song go viral. It's doing the consistent work every day to be in that position. There's a great quote by Samuel Goldwyn Mayer, which I really love to tell people all the time is, I can make any woman into an overnight celebrity. Just give me 2 years. And that's very true about anything that we all try and do is give yourself time to become what you want to become. Because your first podcast is not going to be your best podcast. Your first art piece is not going to be the best. Your first song is not going to be your best. Your first concert is not going to be killer. So stop putting these tremendous pressure on yourself to be perfect. And embrace the flaws that you have because the flaws that each of us have are what makes us the most beautiful things.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Is like looking ahead. What's the goal that you actually have? You're not going to achieve that immediately. How can you whittle away at that goal? And if you actually have this like as a full timeline, you know what I mean? If you put out a plan, this is how I'm going to be able to succeed. Yeah, it's okay if you, take one step in the wrong direction or whatever. Maybe your plan now is going to take 2 more steps to be finished. But if you have that kind of written out and you're giving your time to make the progression, then each day doesn't seem as bad, right? Because you're like looking at what you actually want to do and you're envisioning it and then you can see the progress and you're like, oh, okay. That and like we're such an unproductive group of people a lot of times, like just anybody is, right?
We all waste time.
That's what I'm saying. And the crazy part is if you think about even like a language, right? And people would say, oh, I've wanted to learn Spanish my whole life or something. If all you did was commit 1 hour a day to like learning Spanish, you'd probably be able to speak it pretty well after a year or 2. But people don't want to commit that time. They just think it's like impossible when it doesn't have to be impossible. Talking about struggles and challenges, obviously your stuff's changing around all the time because you're always doing different stuff, which is like, that's just the entrepreneurship mentality, right? You do enough of one thing, you're looking for the next challenge, next thing to pique your interest, the next experience or whatever you're trying to have. What are the current struggles and challenges that you're kind of trying to work through right now?
Well, dude, one of the biggest struggles right now is that there's not consistency. I'll be on a business for a period of time and that'll take off and that thing will be working. But like with coronavirus, a lot of the things that I did, which was filming, working in media, doing these big contracts for media personalities, that's slower now than it was before. So now it's switching that pivot to like traditional businesses and regular people and coming in with smaller things that are more scalable. So I think a lot of it is just being comfortable with that. And then it's also like, staying in routine with my fitness goals. I got in great shape, but to maintain that great shape, I need to stay mostly consistent to my diet, to keep working out, to keep doing a little bit of boxing, keep doing a couple of push-ups. And then it's also hard for me because like I used to lift heavy weights. So it's much harder to do some of these functional movements. And because you beat yourself up about not being great at it. Why can't I do 100 push-ups right now on this new Tyson Beckford bar that moves around? There's no stability. No, this is a hard movement. So if I can do 2 today, the goal tomorrow is to do 3. It's not taking it from 2 to 10, 2 to 20, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 6, 5 to 7, back to 5. And expressing that it's small incremental increases, because I think too often we set such a lofty goal, which is everyone is out here trying to make $1 million business. I go on this app called Clubhouse, which I hate. I call it a place for narcissists to hear themselves speak about being multimillionaires and then to schedule meetings that they can never have because they need to listen to the next millionaire talk. Where it's people throwing gas and gas and gas and there's no engine. You got to make sure everything is kind of balanced. So as much as you do work, you need to make sure that there's time to relax, because you can't just be work, grind, sacrifice without any pleasurable experiences, because that is not a life either.
Right. Well, that's where, again, it comes down to ultimately the point is the pursuit of happiness. It's not the pursuit of money, right? Money can be a tool that can be used to put you in a position where you would be happier in any given moment, potentially. But that's all it is, really, is a tool. And so I have people, again, ask me, about my shop, what's the next goal and stuff. And I've considered larger location or whatever. But ultimately, it's even if I could make more money, that adds more stress and different things to my life that I don't really need. And that's one thing that you see, I think, in the traditional corporate world, right? Is everyone wants the next promotion, but why do they actually want the promotion? They want it for the clout, to be cooler than whoever, and they want it for the additional money. It's rarely because they really want to do that job itself that much more, you know what I mean? And then it puts all this stress and energy, all this stress and stuff on them, and they're not even happier people. It's what did you just achieve? You had your eyes set on the wrong thing is the problem, rather than looking at how can I be the happiest person by, filling my time with these experiences and relationships and stuff. You're not looking at that goal. You're looking at how do I get success in a different way, which is financially, which doesn't even end up making you happy anyways, which you obviously found out. So I know you have a couple things in the works. What can we expect to see from you kind of moving forward? Everyone's going to go hop on Instagram and follow you that doesn't already, and they're going to see these cars and stuff, but what's actually happening?
So what's actually happening right now is I'm actually taking my first venture into e-commerce, where I'm selling a physical product, which is called Intention Crystals, where I sell crystals that are based on chakra healing that are good as reminders. So I believe in chakras and alignment and being spiritual, but even if you don't believe in that, this is a nice gift that you can give someone. So I'm hey, I know you're struggling with your business. I've gotten you this jade bracelet because it is a sign of prosperity. It keeps your heart chakra open so that you don't beat yourself up. And even if you don't believe in crystal healing or anything like that, that is just a nice reminder. And the way that our brain functions is, if you see something, even though that doesn't register consciously in your brain, that note and that intention that someone else gave you is going to motivate you to feel better. And I think that is an amazingly beautiful experience. Another thing I'm working on is, we talked a little bit about this, about building better relationships and better connections, is I went through and I looked at what courses were available. And there's some about straight networking, and it felt so businessy and so regimented and so aggressive that if someone reached out to me or went to an event that I was at, it was here's my business card. We need to network and we're going to bring each other value. I'm going to be a little bit off-put. I'm going to be a little bit threatened. This is going to be if I'm a pretty girl in a bar and somebody just grabs me. I'm going to be blowing my little rape whistle, being what are you trying to do? This is a little bit too much. We're trying to jump into bed and we haven't even said hello. I've started a course called the Star-Studded Network, which is about building a network with zero budget and zero contact list. Very similar to the way that I did it. It's going to be actionable tools that are very simple. It's not going to be, hey, you need to do these 30 different things and then you'll be ready to take step one. It's going to be hey, you got to do this one thing and just put your effort into this one thing. Work on this for a week. Don't worry about the rest of the courses. Just do that one thing. Accomplish that. Spend maybe, if you want to spend 2 or 3 weeks working on this thing, take your time with it. And that's the whole thing. And we're setting it, originally I was planning on doing it as a higher ticket thing, like my coaching, where I do it for $2,500. I was that's not realistically affordable. A lot of people are losing their jobs, and even my businesses have been affected by Corona. So it's I'm going to drop down this course to $247. And then if they buy the course, they get one consulting call about what they're applying. And I recommend that people do it later in the course for $497 total. And we're going to be dropping that in the next 2 months. 2 months from now, that should be live on ashwinjacob.com. And I'm really excited to help people. And the whole goal is, if you're in Wisconsin, if you're in, Maryland, and you have a corporate job, I want that to be applicable. Or if you're in LA and you're trying to be in entertainment, I want this to be applicable. So it's very much so the modern take on how to win friends and influence people, but without a deceptive intention. It's really about building value for other people. And to change that culture of what can people give to me to what can we give to other people, and how can we be positively using this influence that we build to do nicer things for the next generation of people. Because the thing that inspired me the most was I didn't have too many mentors. I didn't have too many people that put me in rooms or give me any opportunities. But the people that did, I've always strived to give back 10x what I got. And when I started coaching people, I just did it for some people. I didn't charge people money in the beginning. And it was just people I saw a piece of myself inside of. And just the joy and the happiness that they were able to get was such a beautiful experience, and them paying it forward has been so beyond amazing. And then thirdly, if anyone is coming to Los Angeles and looking for an exotic car rental, hit me up on Instagram with what you're looking for on the dates, and I'll be sure to give you a great rate on experiencing LA with a beautiful exotic.
I want to go take a picture of that sweet ass car. So I always ask this at the end of every episode. What's an experience that happened to you? Something specific, a specific story you can think about that you're really grateful for, but only happened because you chose the path that you did, which was coming out here with $500.
Mm-hmm. So I think where this all starts with, and these people are still my best friends to this day, is that trip I took to Florence, Italy, where I got hired as a street nightclub promoter because the group of kids that I was staying with abandoned me, and I ended up like in a random Irish bar with guys that knew people from Boston that I knew, just like I knew your brother-in-law randomly, which we discovered in the course of the podcast. And I was hungover, and I met this guy that recognized something on my t-shirt, and we had a conversation. I told him, hey, I'm here, and I want to go to clubs, and I want to promote, and I want to work. And he gave me a shot to pass out flyers. And by passing out flyers, I ended up being a tour guide. And by doing the tour guiding thing with them, he ended up having exhaustion because he was working too many jobs. And I'd visit him in the hospital, and I kept working our gig, and I kept splitting my check with him. And this guy that worked for Playboy doing the parties at the mansion met me and saw what I was doing, and he saw my hustle. He's like, hey, I want you to help me with what I'm doing. And that gave me a shot. And that was the first experience that I came to Los Angeles. So as a kid that dreamt about California, my first experience coming to Los Angeles itself, my first night in Los Angeles, I ended up at a party at the Playboy Mansion answering phone calls for him a little bit. And I was awkward. I was a little kid, you know. I was just impressed to even be in Hugh Hefner's home around playmates. And like that ended up creating some of the best friendships of my life. And a lot of those women are like older sisters to me that taught me how to network with people in entertainment, network with people in business, and how to, you know, listen more than I spoke in a lot of situations, and, you know, just be somebody that people like to have around and progressively learn things and be patient with myself.
Yeah, I mean, in general, if you surround yourself with people that are doing things that you enjoy, doing things you want to be doing, that's always kind of the best spot, right? Because then you're actively wanting to work with these types of people. Even if you don't have a way to do it yet, you want to. So it's like surrounding yourself with those types of people. And that goes into like health and fitness. That goes into, in general, like, you know, whatever, your own positive mental attitude. It's just surrounding yourself with like people who are trying to get stuff done but are happy about doing it and want to hang out. It's like, if you can get in those, you know, those right groups, it doesn't have to be a stuffy networking thing. It doesn't have to be that way at all. It's just about like, how can I meet more cool friends that I have that we can all help each other? What is so everyone makes some mistakes. I mean, you're still pretty young and you did a lot of stuff, but if you had to pick out one mistake that you made leading up to this point, that you did this and then you learned something from it that ended up being valuable later on, that somebody can listening right now is going to benefit from, what's a mistake you made?
So I think one of the mistakes I made, and this is something that relates from like having a very traditional family and, you know, traditional values. I still do believe in like marriage and, you know, having like a primary partner and a wife. And there are times in my life where I've over prioritized what I perceive someone to be as a potential partner and over prioritize them so much that I negate my own value to myself. My own level of self-love is neglected because I want to do whatever I can to appease this person. And when that goes south, which it inevitably will in those sort of cases where that's not being returned, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt your own business, and you're going to lower your own value. So focusing more on loving myself every day and realizing that being fulfilled in yourself is more important than being fulfilled by your girlfriend or your wife, I think is a very, very important lesson to really take to heart. Because, like, you know, as much as like I love what I do on a day-to-day basis, that is something that I've always wanted. And if I make that the only priority, I'm going to just attract people that want things based to the other accomplishments in my life. As opposed to if I'm just living my life content and fulfilled, working on what I want, the right person is going to come into my life that's doing their own thing that I can bring value to, they can bring value to me, and we can have a great, you know, relationship. And I think that's one of those things in life. A lot of times we over prioritize what society tells us we need. Forget about what society tells you that you need. Focus on what you need, and don't be afraid to take that job that you're losing money for a period of time. Because I lose money on deals or on businesses in the beginning for a period of time to learn how to do it. I consider that part of my further education.
Absolutely.
You'll take a loss. You'll take a loss to learn something, or you'll help someone out with their business. Like there's something that you could do to help someone out in a business that you don't know anything about, not even doing anything related to that. You will learn little pieces of that.
Right. Well, and it's all about, again, personal growth, right? And people will pay money to go to a university to learn a skill. Why can't you pay some money, in that way? If you think of it as an investment to learn something, then it's worth something. It's the same way you would put money into taking a class to be able to better yourself. It's the same way you'd buy a book. It's to better yourself.
And this way you're only paying once. You're getting paid something. So you're making money. And if you're not making money, the only thing that you're giving is the most valuable thing that you have, which is your time.
Right.
And your time is what you need to invest into the things that you love, your passions and projects that bring you a return on joy.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.